This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Newton Shuttlecotty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis.
The Download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com.
This week, Spotify debuts comments, advertisers are accidentally buying on misinformation, diversifying sports podcast investments, women's sports end up being a good bet, and where to invest to catch Gen Alpha. Let's get started.
This Tuesday from the Spotify newsroom, the ability for audiences to leave comments on podcasts has been rolled out, enabling another level of engagement. The move comes a year after the introduction of polls and Q&A sessions within the Spotify ecosystem. A quote from Spotify, quote, "With the introduction of comments, we're also excited to give all creators, regardless of where their episodes are hosted, better ways to manage their entire show, including listener feedback," end quote. In addition, the service has announced the Spotify for Podcasters dashboard, both from the usual desktop computer interface and from a new SFP mobile app, facilitating notifications and direct access to user engagement whenever new comments are posted.
Researchers from Carnegie Mellon and Stanford recently published in the science journal Nature have found a significant portion of top advertisers unknowingly ran ads on misinformation websites between 2019 and 2021. More than 75% of websites flagged by NewsGuard and Global Disinformation Index had ads run on them. 55% of the top 100 most active advertisers appeared on misinformation sites during the studied timeframe. Programmatic advertising has long carried the risk of brand unsafe placements due to ads being served based on user data, not the host itself. A report last year from the Association of National Advertisers projects about $10 billion was spent on ad placements made on clickbait sites from September 2022 to January 2023. However, part of the researchers' findings revealed that just 41% of surveyed CEOs and CMOs believed, quote, consumers react against companies whose advertisements appear on misinformation websites, end quote. While there is no perfect system, podcasting's track record of transparency with its programmatic inventory and brand safety tools go a long way to reducing the possibility of similar accidental buys in our industry.
Sports podcasting continues its upward climb as one of the most popular genres for advertisers, and for good reason. Legions of passionate fans are tuning in regularly to hear more about their favorite pastime. That said, the cyclical nature of sports can make podcasts hosted by athletes a tricky proposition during off-seasons. Last Thursday, Kirsty Hatcher at People covered the announcement that, hot on the heels of Taylor Swift and Super Bowl-prompted growth, New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce will now cease uploading for at least 2 months. According to Jason Kelce, the hiatus is to accommodate for Travis's NFL training season. Meanwhile, on the same day, Lakers Nation writer Corey Hansford covered the announcement that former basketball player J.J. Redick will be mothballing his own podcast to focus on his new position as head coach of the Lakers. On Sunday, Yahoo News writer Christian Dyer covered the quiet cancellation of popular long-running series around the NFL. While previous articles noted the oddity of the podcast not having uploaded since May, an ex-post from Greg Rosenthal confirms that while the show was intended to end on May 23rd, the NFL has decided not to continue the podcast. While sports podcasts with celebrity/athlete hosts are impressive, it's worth remembering there is a wider, diverse ecosystem around each major sport. Fan-hosted podcasts tend to be consistent, reliable, and can produce content even during training seasons or gaps between games.
From the 2024 Women's NCAA Tournament reaching a peak of 24 million viewers at the final game, to the UK's National Women's Soccer League receiving a 17% boost in interest between 2023 and 2024, according to Nielsen data, fandom for women's sports is on the rise. The global women's sports industry saw a 300% rise in revenue since 2021 and has begun to beat out viewership for the men's league. Last month at Cannes Lion, iHeartMedia and Deep Blue launched their Women's Sports Audio Network, a joint investment set to target the rapidly growing audience. The new network and its accompanying women's sports podcast network hope to increase accessibility for fans, one of the biggest hurdles for the space's growth. According to data from Nielsen, WNBA fans are more likely to engage with brands online share through word of mouth advertising, and follow through on purchases. The WSAN is launching in partnerships with brands such as Elf Cosmetics and Capital One, hoping to put aforementioned data to good use in capturing this underserved audience. Projected to reach about 75 million listeners a day, the network's flagship show is the daily news podcast Good Game with Sarah Spain.
YouTube influencers and gaming are the main targets as ad agencies prepare their marketing strategies for Gen Alpha. Interactive agency Razorfish recently published a survey of 3,474 Gen Alpha respondents and their parents spread across 9 markets around the world, while video ad platform Precise TV published similar findings from surveying families consisting of 3,000 children aged 2 to 12. 69% of Gen Alpha have gaming consoles, and 60% play games on phones or tablets. Parents will not be surprised to hear Roblox is far and away the most popular platform. According to Danny Mariano, president of Razorfish, learning styles have changed significantly from Gen Z. Quote, they prefer interactive, gamified experiences and rely on hacks, how-to videos, and DIYs over conventional learning. End quote. Gen Alpha also tends to prefer YouTube, TikTok, and other video content platforms over traditional TV and streaming, with watch hours often translating to big spending. 22% of study participants reported making a purchase after watching YouTube Shorts. Ad recall and ad preference are also higher on YouTube Shorts than TikTok. In regards to brands, Gen Alpha tends to prefer tangible things, including in-person experiences and events, as well as brands marketing themselves as creative and inspirational.
Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week, What Border Collies Can Teach Us About Podcasting by Tom Webster. Tom reflects on how, like the energetic Border Collie, podcast hosts need a clearly defined job or they'll wreak havoc. Ad industry acquisitions are beginning to heat up by Ryan Barwick. Several advertising, merger and acquisition events happened in a short succession in June, signaling maturation and condensation in the SSP world. This American Life is going back to National Public Media for ads by Ashley Carmen. The storied radio series and podcast is returning to NPM for advertising on its podcast after the end of their contract with the New York Times. Cannes Lions bet on creators this year. Did it pay off? By Katie Hicks. A new creator-focused track at Cannes Lions enabled content creators and influencers to get more face time with brands. And finally, Tony's launches podcast designed to keep children off screens. Toy-based audio brand Tony's is bringing some of its audio out from behind a figurine-based paywall to a public RSS feed.
And that was The Download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app, or on the download section of soundsprofitable.com. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Newton Shuttlecotty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Newton Shuttlecotty, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting The Download, and thanks to you for joining us. Robot.
Download complete.